It's 9:40 a.m., the 9th of October 2025. Near Thitu Island, the Philippine patrol ship BRP Datu Pagbuaya rides steep chop, antennas rattling. On the scope, two hard returns bloom Chinese Coast Guard. 2-1559 and a shadowing cutter bearing steady. Range collapsing. Maintain distance. The bridge transmits. Voice flat to hide the tremor. Static. Then pressure hoses erupt. White geysers hammer the bow, smashing cameras and rails. Sailors drop to a knee, knuckles white on safety lines. The helmsman fights the wheel. Warning tones stack. Through the spray, a white hull swells in the windows, block letters filling the frame. Brace! Impact steel screams. Lockers burst. Coffee explodes across the chart. Lights flicker. Salt and burnt wiring bite the air. The ship heels, then steadies, deck slick with shattered plastic. Orders snap. Damage control. Seal watertight. Check rudder. For one held heartbeat, nobody breathes. Then the truth lands. This isn't a standoff. It's contact, and the next minute decides who walks away. On a map, the South China Sea looks clean, just blue and borders. Out here it's noise, glare, and muscle. Cargo ships drag the world's lifelines through narrow lanes near Thitu Island, where one wrong move can rattle markets an ocean away. Fuel, food, and microchips all depend on this stretch of water staying open and free. For the Philippines, Thitu isn't a dot, it's home. Families live here, kids go to school, soldiers plant gardens between watch ships. For China, it's a red patch inside its claim zone, proof of who holds power. Since the 28th of August, 2025 collision near Scarborough Shoal, tempers have only thickened. More patrols, closer passes, radio warnings that sound more like threats. The BRP Datu Pagbuaya is small, old, and stubborn. Its orders are clear. Hold position, protect civilians, don't fire first. Each word now feels like a test of courage and restraint. On every screen from Manila to Washington, this moment plays out every jolt, every shout captured, judged, archived. It's no longer just about territory. It's about pride, legacy, and the fine line between duty and disaster. To the east, the USS Gabrielle Giffords races forward under the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty, but even help adds tension. More ships mean more eyes, more signals, more chances to misread intent. The air feels electric, radios hiss like nerves. Across the water, CCG 21559 idles close, its crew watching back, faces unreadable behind glass. Two sides, two flags. One narrow strip of sea neither will yield. Waves slap steel, engines hum like held breath. The ocean waits for the next order to hold or to break. And you watching this moment, what would you choose? Press 1 to stand firm with the Pagbuaya, or 9 to pull back before pride turns to fire. 9:46 a.m. The bridge lights flicker as the BRP Datu Pagbuaya steadies her bow. The hull groans but holds. Radar! Confirm range! A voice cuts through the noise. Two returns still close, CCG 21559 and its escort, now circling like wolves. Over the open channel, a new voice in Mandarin barks orders. The interpreter stiffens. They're telling us to leave their waters, she says quietly. They're loading hoses again. The commander glances out the window. A silver glint camera drone's rising from the Chinese deck. The crew braces. All stations, defensive posture only, he calls. Floodlights flare, sirens pulse. The Pagbuaya's forward deck crew deploys smoke canisters, cheap, desperate cover that blooms gray across the sea. It buys seconds, maybe less. At 9:49, another burst of water slams the port side. Sensors short. A sailor shouts, "We're losing external cams." The commander's jaw locks. He raises the radio to Manila Command. Thitu Station. This is Pagbuaya contact sustained. No shots fired. Hull compromised forward frame 2. Static answers back. On the horizon, the wake of another ship ripples a Chinese auxiliary cutter, joining the scene. 3 on 1 now. From the control room, the helmsman mutters, "Sir, if they press again, we'll beach." "Negative," the captain says. "We hold line." He knows the rule. Once you yield, they own the space. 9:53. Metal clangs, something scrapes the stern. "We're boxed!" yells the navigator. The crew scrambles as one of the Chinese ships veers dangerously close, just 50 meters off the aft quarter. The sea between them boils with wake and spray. "Deploy sound cannon!" The operator hits the trigger. A deep roar floods the air. The sound waves ripple, shaking the rails, startling even their own men. For a heartbeat, it works. The cutter pulls back, engines throttling down, but above, a drone swoops low, hovering just meters from the bridge. The commander looks up through the glass, watching its lens tilt. It's not just a machine, it's proof someone, somewhere, is watching every second of this gamble. The tension hums like electricity through the ship. Nobody speaks, nobody moves. Hands clamp the rails, sweat burns, no one breathes. One wrong turn, one slip, one shove, and history tips over. 9:58 a.m. The smoke clears. The Paguaya steadies, her hull trembling from the last hit. Around her, the Chinese cutters slide back into formation, 3 white hulls fanning out in a slow crescent, boxing her toward the reef. The commander wipes salt from his eyes. "Steer 2 degrees starboard," he orders. "Keep us clear, but don't give ground." The enemy mirrors instantly. Spotlights sweep the water, cutting through haze. Over the radio, a calm Mandarin voice echoes, "You are violating Chinese jurisdiction. Withdraw immediately." The interpreter glances up. "Sir, they're recording this." The captain exhales. "So are we." At 10:01, another blast hits the bow. The ship jolts. "Stabilizers offline," a voice shouts. The commander grips the console. "Damage control, report." "Hull intact, frame flexing." He nods once. Every second they hold is defiance. Every retreat, surrender. Below deck, engineers fight alarms and seawater leaks. Pumps whine, breakers spark. The ship was built for patrols, not duels. "Sir," the helmsman mutters, "they're pushing us toward shallow water." The sonar ticks 6 meters, dropping. "They want us stuck," the captain says. "They won't get it." The Paguaya's guns stay cold, but her cameras fix on the nearest cutter so close faces show behind tinted glass. One young Chinese officer hesitates, hand hovering over his cannon control. For a heartbeat, 2 men same age, same fear stare across the spray before the sea roars again. 10:05. Both sides push engines. Wakes collide, white water boiling. Radios erupt Manila command, Chinese orders. Fishermen screaming for space. "Hold course, no retreat," the commander says, voice steady. Thunder rumbles from the west, clouds blacken the horizon. The reef glows turquoise beneath them, beautiful, deadly, waiting. "Depth 5.5 meters, the navigator calls. The captain nods, silent. Every gauge now feels like a countdown. Engines hum, alarms fade. 2 nations stare each other down across 50 meters of sea, and neither will blink first. And you watching this standoff tighten by the second, what would you do when duty and pride pull opposite ways? Press 1 if you'd hold your line with the Paguaya, or 9 if you'd pull back before pride sinks the ship. 10:08 a.m. The first warning comes from sonar, an echo below the surface, faint but steady. Unknown contact, shallow depth, bearing 085. The commander leans forward. "Subsurface? Possibly a mini-sub or drone," the operator replies. The Chinese cutters hold formation, but something else moves beneath them, silent, deliberate. The Paguaya has no anti-sub gear, only sonar and nerves. "Mark the contact," the captain orders. "Maintain distance." The blips multiply 2, then 3. "They're coordinated," the operator mutters. The bridge falls silent. Whatever's below isn't random. Suddenly, the nearest Chinese cutter drifts sideways, engines roaring. "They're pushing us off the reef," the navigator says. "Or hiding something." Through binoculars, the commander spots a thin rainbow slick spreading over the surface, fresh oil. "Fuel leak," he murmurs. "Something venting down there." 10:11. One of the contacts fades. Another rises. The sonar trace grows darker, larger. "Depth 4.8 meters, the helmsman warns. "We're cornered." Then a metallic ping shakes the hull. It repeats closer each time. "Contact closing." The captain doesn't hesitate. "Hard to port, engines full." The Paguaya lurches left as a dark shape slices past the bow, a black cylinder vanishing into murk. Silence. Subsurface drone, the technician says. The captain exhales, watching ripples fade. This isn't random aggression, it's a test. Someone below is measuring how close they can push before someone breaks. Lightning cracks overhead. Rain pelts the glass. The sea turns gray, horizon gone. 3 white hulls hold position. Unbothered, patient. The message is clear. The next move belongs to the Philippines, but the ocean has already chosen its side. 10:15 a.m. Rain lashes the deck like bullets. The horizon is gone, just gray water, white spray, and 3 Chinese cutters closing fast. The Paguaya rocks hard as wind screams across the bridge. Engines holding? Barely, sir. The commander nods. Then we hold too. Lightning flashes. For an instant, the sea glows silver, and the nearest cutter is right there less than 40 meters off the bow. Collision course, the navigator yells. The captain's hand hovers over the alert switch. Do not fire, he warns, voice tight with restraint. 10:17. Another impact, smaller but sharper. Hull contact, aft section. Sparks spray the stern. They're testing our line, the XO says, and they're not stopping. The Paguaya answers with her horn, long and furious, echoing through the storm like defiance itself. The next wave hits. A water cannon sweeps the bridge, smashing glass and sensors. Crew duck under spray. One sailor bleeds from a cut above his eye. We're blind on port cameras, someone shouts. The captain grips the console, drenched. Stabilize the feet. I want eyes on that cutter. The enemy keeps pressing, bow slicing closer. Spotlight blazing. The commander stares through shattered glass, 2 crews locked in a storm, 1 gust from history. This isn't about territory anymore. It's about proving who yields first. 10:19. Sir, the sonar officer calls. Underwater contact, closing fast. The captain's pulse spikes. Brace! The crew crouches as the drone streaks beneath, vibrating the deck like a heartbeat. Then silence. The drone veers away. The storm howls. Radios hiss. The Paguaya, battered and half-blind, refuses to break. Manila calls, hold position. U.S. ship inbound. The captain nods, exhausted. Tell them, we're still here. Through the rain, a faint silhouette rises on the horizon. Sleek, gray, fast. The USS Gabrielle Giffords cutting through the squall, her lights like distant resolve. The Chinese cutters slow. Engines rumbling low. Nobody moves. Nobody dares. And as the sea calms just enough for breath, ask yourself, if you stood on that bridge, drenched and surrounded, would you hold your line with the Paguaya, press 1, or pull back before the next flash turns the sea to fire, press 9? 10:37 a.m. The storm breaks into drizzle. The Paguaya floats scarred but upright, smoke curling from the vents. Her crew stands silent, drenched, scanning a sea now calm but full of ghosts. Across the waves, the Chinese cutters drift back, no victory signal, no retreat either, just distance, thick and heavy, like unspoken warning. Manila confirms the arrival of the USS Gabrielle Giffords. The American ship cuts a wide arc around Thitu, its gray hull gleaming against pale clouds. For the first time in hours, the radio is quiet. The tension hasn't ended, it's just shifted. Now it's political, invisible, and waiting. Down in the mess hall, sailors patch cuts and wrap bruises. The captain walks among them, stopping at each face, nodding once. You did your job, he says simply. Outside, welders start temporary fixes. Salt water drips from torn steel, hissing as it hits hot metal. The smell is sharp. Iron, oil, survival. From orbit, satellites catch the aftermath. A scar on the reef, dark trails in the water, and one small patrol ship holding her line. News networks roll the footage within hours. Commentators argue over intent, over fault, over who blinked first. But for the men who were there, the only truth that matters is that they didn't. 11:10 a.m. The Paguaya turns slowly toward home, escorted by the Giffords. The crew watches the shrinking shapes on the horizon, 3 white hulls fading into haze. Nobody cheers. Nobody speaks. Only the sea breathes again, pretending to forget. For the Philippines, this day becomes a symbol: courage wrapped in caution, defiance without fire. For China, it's proof that pressure works, that fear bends before power. For the US, it's a reminder that alliances only matter when tested in rain and salt. And as the world debates who won, the ocean keeps its own score, measured not in ships sunk, but in how long each side dares to stand. Now it's your turn to choose. Press 1 if you'd have stood with the Pagbuaya, or 9 if you'd have pulled back before the next storm writes a new line in history. It's 1437 CST on the 19th of September 2025. In the South China Sea, near the Spratly Islands, the USS Ronald Reagan suddenly picks up multiple unknown tracks. Alarms blare. Sailors sprint to battle stations, sealing hatches and loading magazines. On the flight deck, F-35C pilots race to their jets as deck crew wave them forward. The Aegis screens flash red. A DF-21D plunges from the upper atmosphere while more contacts bloom along the coast. Set condition 1. The captain orders. Decoys, chaff, and jammers spin up as the carrier turns to narrow its profile. Catapults hiss. A pair of F-35C blast into a trembling sky. Data links locked and encrypted. Interceptors leap from an escort, contrails carving white scars. A bright bloom marks a hit, but more tracks remain. Comms crackle. For a heartbeat, the picture drops, jamming bites, then returns. Steel decks vibrate. The next minutes will decide if this carrier survives or vanishes beneath contested waters. In the South China Sea, shipping lanes cut through one of the busiest stretches of ocean on the planet. Oil tankers, container ships, and fishing fleets all thread these waters every hour. That constant flow fuels factories, fills stores, and keeps daily life running back home. To secure that lifeline, the USS Ronald Reagan and her strike group patrol here, tasked with making sure commerce moves unchallenged. But China claims almost all of these waters. From fortified outposts on reefs and artificial islands, the People's Liberation Army watches, challenges, and pushes back. They roll out ballistic missiles, hypersonic weapons, and electronic jammers designed for one purpose: to make U.S. carriers turn away. If they succeed, the consequences ripple worldwide. Insurance rates spike, shelves go empty, allies lose faith. A retreat here would signal that Beijing controls not just the sea, but the rules of trade itself. That's why the Reagan sails in harm's way. Her objective is clear: hold the line, no matter the cost. Thousands of sailors aboard understand what's at stake, not just their own lives, but the credibility of American power. Every radar ping, every missile warning carries a weight beyond the steel walls of their ship. Right now, that weight has never felt heavier. The opening salvos are already in the air. The clash is no longer theory, it's happening in real time. The question is simple and brutal. Can U.S. defenses hold against China's missiles, jammers, and submarines? And for you watching, if you believe America can stand firm, press 1 inch the comments. If you think China's arsenal tips the balance, press 9. Don't forget to hit subscribe, because what comes next will push this fight even further. 1442 CST. The Reagan sensors scream with fresh warnings. Multiple missiles inbound, some ballistic, some sea skimming. The first line of defense responds instantly. From the cruiser escorting nearby, SM-3 interceptors roar upward, climbing fast to meet the DF-21D plunging from the stratosphere. A white bloom marks the collision, but it's only one threat down. Seconds later, the Reagan's Aegis locks onto another wave, this time a spread of cruise missiles launched from a Type 055 destroyer. The order comes: engage, engage. Vertical launch cells crack open and standard missiles streak into the sky, contrails slashing across the horizon. Each one is a gamble hit, and the ship lives, miss, and steel meets fire. On deck, F-35C clear the bow one after another, catapults hissing under the strain. Their mission: intercept what the ship cannot. Pilots climb hard into the blinding sun, their radars scanning low and wide. Contact bearing 090, closing fast. One calls. Sidewinders leave his wing, chasing a low-flying cruise missile skimming the waves. A fireball erupts, the sea swallowing the wreckage. But for everyone destroyed, another shows on radar. Coordination becomes everything. The Reagan links with her escorts, sharing tracks second by second to avoid gaps. Copy, I've got the southern lane. A destroyer calls over encrypted net. Explosions dot the horizon, each one a fleeting relief. In the Combat Information Center, sailors grip headsets, eyes fixed on glowing screens. They know the odds China launched to overwhelm, not just to hit. Then comes another layer of attack. Electronic jamming thickens. Radar screens fuzz with static. Comms distort, voices warping. Say again, crackles through the net. For a breathless moment, the Reagan is blind. The crew feels it. The fight is now hand-to-hand. Machine against machine. Signal against signal. Yet through the haze, a Tomahawk leaves the Reagan's escort, firing not defensively but offensively, arcing toward a Chinese radar site on a reef. One strike to claw back vision. One strike to show the fight cuts both ways. The horizon burns. The opening round has begun, and both sides are already blooded. 1450 CST. The first wave is barely contained when the second arrives faster, lower, and more coordinated. Several Chinese cruise missiles slip through the outer defenses, weaving past interceptors. The Reagan adjusts course by just a few degrees, a subtle shift that makes targeting harder and forces attackers into tighter angles. On the deck, close-in weapon systems spin up, barrels tracking like watchful eyes. F-35C already airborne dive in again, chasing threats that streak just above the waves. One missile explodes in a blinding flash. Another splits into decoys, confusing radars and pilots alike. Multiple contacts unable to confirm. A voice shouts over the net. The pressure climbs with every second. Inside the Combat Information Center, sailors sweat under red battle lights. Screens fill with clutter from electronic jamming. Comms lag, then snap back. The crew leans harder on encrypted links, piecing together fragments of the fight. Every decision comes down to seconds. Fire too early, and the ship wastes missiles. Fire too late, and steel takes the hit. The enemy knows it. Chinese destroyers push closer, launching yet another wave. Torpedoes ripple from beneath the surface. Type 093 submarines now in play. Sonobuoys splash into the water, listening for movement in the deep. Helicopters scramble, dropping depth charges in desperate arcs. The sea itself turns hostile, hiding threats both above and below. Then a shock. One cruise missile evades all intercepts, skimming just feet above the ocean. CIWS guns erupt, spitting tracers into the darkening sky. The roar shakes the deck as sailors brace for impact. At the last instant, the missile detonates in a blossom of fire destroyed barely a mile out. Cheers erupt, but only for a moment. Everyone knows the line nearly broke. Damage control teams sprint with hoses and foam, ready to rush below if heat sensors trip. Medics ready stretchers. This is the knife's edge of modern warfare, seconds from survival or disaster. So here's the question. If you think the Reagan's crew can keep holding back this storm, press 1 inch the comments. If you believe China's relentless waves will eventually break through, press 9 and subscribe now, because the next twist will push both sides into uncharted territory. 1457 CST. Just as the Reagan steadies after the near miss, a new threat appears smaller, faster, harder to track. Chinese forces unleash DF-17 hypersonic glide vehicles from inland launchers. Unlike earlier missiles, these don't follow predictable arcs. They skip and dive through the atmosphere, twisting paths that strain radar and reaction times. Hypersonics inbound, flashes across the command center. Even one hit could cripple the carrier. The commander orders, bring the laser online. On the forward deck, the experimental directed energy weapon hums to life. A flare blooms one hypersonic destroyed mid-air. Another beam cuts across the sky, vaporizing a second. Cheers rise, but no one relaxes. The system is new, untested under fire. Below the surface, Type 093 submarines press their attack. Torpedo wakes surge toward the carrier. Helicopters drop depth charges in frantic arcs, while destroyers sweep with sonar. Explosions thud underwater. shock waves rocking the formation. There is no safe direction arcs above, hunters below. Then the twist deepens. Electronic warfare spikes again, not just jamming, it's a cyber strike. Consoles freeze, screens flicker. For 30 seconds, the Reagan systems grind under assault. Sailors scramble to reroute power, reboot defenses, isolate compromised nodes. The ship lurches, defenses dulled. Backup drills snap into motion. Pilots switch to line-of-sight comms and relay targets by voice. The captain grips the rail. Hold the line! Lasers fire again. CIWS roar. Sub-hunters chase in the deep. Every system, every sailor, stretched to the limit. This is no longer just defense, it's survival. 15.5 CST. The sky and sea converge into chaos. The last and heaviest wave of Chinese firepower closes in cruise missiles, hypersonics, and torpedoes all at once. For the Reagan's crew, it's the breaking point. CIWS guns, thunder, spitting walls of tracers that light up the dusk. Each burst rips the air, cutting down missiles skimming only yards above the waves. F-35C streak through the clouds, launching sidewinders in rapid succession. One missile vanishes in a fireball. Another keeps coming, forcing a pilot to fire his last shot before pulling away on empty racks. On the deck, sailors brace as the carrier lurches into a hard turn, trying to present the narrowest profile. Lasers lock on again, beams invisible but deadly. One hypersonic shatters, scattering molten fragments across the sea. Another dives lower, slipping through the arc of defense. CIWS rakes it, tearing it apart just short of impact. The ship shakes under the shockwave, spray blasting over the bow. Below, destroyers battle the lurking submarines. Torpedoes hiss toward the formation, only to meet depth charges exploding in thunderous columns. The ocean bucks, as if alive. Waves pounding the carrier's hull. Every sailor feels it. This is the knife-edge moment. Then the nightmare. A missile breaks through the defensive wall. The Reagan's crew watches it close, seconds from impact. Damage control teams sprint toward likely strike zones, fire gear at the ready. The CIWS takes its final shot. Tracers converge. A blinding flash target destroyed. A heartbeat before it hits. The ship rocks violently, but the carrier still floats. Smoke trails fade. Silence follows the storm. The horizon, once alive with streaks of fire, slowly clears. Sailors collapse against bulkheads, exhausted but alive. On the net, status calls stabilize. Power holding, propulsion steady, flight ops intact, all stations report ready. They know they've faced one of the fiercest barrages in modern naval history and held. And now it's your call. If you believe the Reagan's defense has proven U.S. resolve, press 1-inch the comments. If you think China's relentless pressure shows this fight is far from over, press 9. Either way, subscribe now because the aftermath of this clash may be even more explosive than the battle itself. 15:30 CST. The Reagan still floats, scarred but intact. Her crew breathes again, though every face shows exhaustion. The sea around them tells the story. Oil slicks spread from shattered missiles. Smoke columns mark where intercepts turned fire into foam. Above, F-35C circle low. Fuel nearly gone. Their pilots silent with the weight of what just happened. Result: the carrier survives. But survival came at enormous cost. Hundreds of missiles, drones, torpedoes, and hypersonics were unleashed in less than an hour. Each one cost China far less to launch than the US spent to stop. A billion-dollar defensive shield consumed by waves of cheaper firepower. For Washington, it proves defense can work, but also exposes the grim math of modern war. Strategically, the message cuts both ways. Allies see that America still holds the line, even under the fiercest assault. But they also see the pressure rising, the scale of resources needed to keep seas open. Beijing watches too, learning from every failed strike, adjusting tactics for the next round. Hours later, limited Tomahawk strikes hit command nodes on Hainan meant to warn, not widen the war. On the Reagan, sailors patch steel, reset systems, and prepare to fight again. There is no illusion that this was the last wave. Intelligence suggests more mobile launchers inland, More subs at sea, more jammers waiting to strike. The enemy adapts. The crew knows the next attack could be bigger, sharper, deadlier. For now, the sea lanes remain open. Cargo ships move on, unaware of how close they came to chaos. But the balance is shifting. Each clash costs more, risks more, and tests the will of both nations. So here's your choice. If you believe America's stand tonight proves lasting strength, press 1 inch the comments. If you think China's persistence shows this conflict is only beginning, press 9. And hit subscribe, because the next confrontation may decide not just who controls the South China Sea, but who shapes the future of global power.